Good morning. Welcome back to SJU. It is Thursday. It is I, Danielle Radford. Apparently that's how I start these. It is I, Danielle Radford. I've brought with you entertainment news.
Listen up, peasants.
Along with me, I have got Dan Murrell, I have got Eric Goldman, and I have got good friend of the show, good friend of mine, the wonderful, brilliant Ms. Riley Silverman.
Hello. How are you?
So excited to have you here.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
I'm infiltrating just with all of my buds.
This is the bad eyesight squad. We're 4 for 4 today.
Yeah.
Some days we're 3, but
we're all born
yes.
with defective oculars.
That's right.
That's right, 8 eyes. Well, let's...
Astigmatism for the winmatism.
We've got some good stories today. We're going to get into some Dark Phoenix stuff. No spoilers, no worries. I haven't seen it. We're going to talk about some Swamp Thing news, and we're going to talk about some pets. And that one, the pets one, is via Joe from where he's at on vacation.
From parts unknown.
Hey, Jojo Bear, just be on vacation. It's okay, sweetheart. So first, we're going to talk about the long journey of Dark Phoenix. So X-Men Dark Phoenix comes out this weekend after a long road, including being delayed twice. The original release on that was supposed to be November of last year. The first delay was then going to be February of this year. It is finally opening this weekend. You know, there's a bunch of different obstacles that have happened. The reviews have been harsh. We'll see how it does opening weekend. Dan, do you have any ideas about that?
Well, the bad reviews are not going to help. Plus, Secret Life of Pets 2 also opens this weekend.
Yeah.
So, from what I've been reading and from what people have been looking at the numbers, but you never know what's going to happen until it actually happens. But it looks like it's probably going to open number 2 this weekend behind Secret Life of Pets. But you never know. I mean, it's Aladdin was a surprise to everybody, and the reviews weren't great on it, but then the reviews weren't great in Godzilla, and it underperforms. So it's this summer in particular, but every summer is like, you can guess, you can take your best guesses, but you never know what's going to happen. But the conventional wisdom and what people think looking at the numbers is that it's probably going to open in second place. It's also a day and date global release.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much everywhere. It again. But last weekend, people thought that Godzilla was going to be strong globally until the numbers came in. Yeah. So Dark Phoenix, they say globally is looking okay, but you never know. And also, this movie has a reported production budget of $200 million. Which when you have a $200 million budget,
Which I think like $50 million of is the reshoot.
probably the reshoots.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a minimum if you want to break even, just in the theatrically, you're looking at probably $600 million worldwide is what you want to pull in. Budget times 3 is what we look at a lot. So even if it has a great opening weekend, it's $250 million. Keep in mind they're still going to have to essentially, if they want to break even in the theatrical window, double or more that number or triple, which is that's in the summer for any movie.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Because
real
you usually
tough.
have one weekend,
Yeah.
and
That's why budget is so important, and why people are like, well, why did you talk about this? Like, why did you say Rocket Man had a really good opening at $25 million, but Godzilla didn't have a great opening at $50 million? Like, they kicked its butt. It's like, well, because Rocket Man was made for $40 million, and Godzilla was made for $175. So, yes, that is a big... There's more than just the raw number.
Yeah.
That goes
Yeah,
into
they didn't have the
everything.
CGI Taron Egerton to be Elton John. They just gave him glasses and a wacky haircut.
The Gap is actually CGI. They had to
The
spend
Chief
all the
Gap
money
is
on.
CGI. Yeah.
Is it really?
No.
I wouldn't put it past him at
It's
this
a practical
point.
effect.
That movie's
legacy.
money is all in musical numbers, and that's not nearly as expensive as building an entire city that you're destroying and having like multiple monsters you have to design and render and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of, you mentioned the reshoots. There were major reshoots, including the final act needed to be changed due to what is said here on the sheet that I'm glad I have. Unintended similarities to another comic book movie. It is suspected to be Captain Marvel. There's all the time jumps, all the cast of characters, all of the rigmarole about the Marvel Fox merger. Was this movie ever set up for success? That's something that I like to talk about a lot in management. You want to set people up for success. Was Dark Phoenix set up for success?
It was always an uphill battle, even though, we can talk more about this in a little bit, but it's just funny to me that the X-Men movies, if you look at, the past several years, it was like First Class, well received, was like the rebuilding one. Days of Future Past, huge hit. Biggest hit of the whole series. But man, did Apocalypse just pull everything out from underneath.
Yeah.
And once that happened, if Apocalypse had been a home run, and after Days of Future Past, it was like, hey, if you deliver another one, that's great. But I think once Apocalypse whiffed it, then it was just going to be, they would have to deliver something truly stellar with Dark Phoenix at this point, because people were really just like, enough at this point,
Well, I think it makes the same mistake The Last Stand makes, which is that, like, and Kyle Anderson at Nerdist made the same point, that you can't really do Dark Phoenix proper if you don't do Phoenix proper first.
And
At least this time, and actually both things did the exact same thing, where Apocalypse hinted at this greater power in Jean, and then this is a movie where she's the Phoenix. But like, same thing happened with Last Stand, where we had a little bit of stuff in X2 where she suddenly started like being more powerful. Ever since Liberty Island, she makes the room shake, that kind of stuff. And then suddenly Last Stand, she's Dark Phoenix and she's a threat and she kills Professor X and all that kind of stuff that's happening from the trailer of this. Seems like the same thing is happening here with a different character. And so it's like they literally just walked up and were like, hey, that mistake we made a decade ago, let's just go for it again. Let's do it exactly again.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put too much stock in that Apocalypse setup either. Walking in, honestly, I think it could have been set up for success. Mm-hmm. I think if you're gonna succeed with a big superhero finale, this would be the summer to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't help when every movie does reshoots. They're not quite as ruinous as far as buzz goes as they used to be necessarily, but I think the skepticism already over the fact that they did Dark Phoenix once and it didn't go well, and so there's already a skepticism from the core fan base of like, I want you to do this right, but I've already been hurt once by literally the same writer who's writing and directing this movie.
Yeah.
So there's already that skepticism. Plus, when you have the reshoots, I think people kind of go like, okay, but maybe, I mean, that's kind of worked out before. And then you push the release date once. Then you put out a trailer with the new release date.
Yeah.
Then the day after that trailer comes out,
It was the day
push the movie again.
Yeah.
It adds to this concept of like, wait, do they know what they're doing? I feel like it could have been set up for success, especially. And the thing that I don't know is, like, when did they know at Fox that this was going to be the last X-Men movie from this? Like, was it, did Simon Kinberg write and direct it with that intention? Was that figured out while they were shooting? After they, like, I don't know the timing internally of when they got the word that, like, hey, listen, this is probably going to be the last one. Yeah. But I feel like it was
a while ago, because there was an interview with the writers of Endgame asking if they ever considered putting X-Men into Endgame, and they were like, we don't have the rights to do that. And they literally said, also, you can't reboot a franchise until they've finished it. So I feel like when they were writing Endgame, there was even talk about, like, when this merger goes through, we're going to have the X-Men, but we can't use them yet.
Yeah. But I feel like I might be messing up my timeline here, like the X-Men movies. But it's like, I think it was like December 2017 we started to hear the Fox thing might happen, but Dark Phoenix had already done principal photography, I believe, at that point.
Right.
So it's like, I think that they did make this movie thinking that this is probably the end for a bunch of these actors, but they didn't know the Disney thing was going to happen, so they still thought in some way we can continue on, versus the like, no, we're selling this whole entire company. So now it's become the end.
But they reshot the third act.
They did reshoot the third
so
act,
I think by the time they probably did reshoots for the third act,
then they knew it was probably going to happen.
And
it hadn't been approved, but it was looking good.
I think there was a way to rearrange things to
Mm-hmm.
set this up as like the epic finale of the X-Men saga. They're kind of trying to sell it like that now.
Yeah,
I think,
that's
because
marketing,
they know
though.
that maybe the interest isn't there, but I think they could have set it up for success, but I don't think they did.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they can reshoot the entire third act, like, look, I'm not saying it's impossible. The movie can still be good with the reshot third act. I mean, I think Rogue One, the third act, is the best part of the whole movie, is that third act.
Yeah.
So there is things about it, but I think the fact that you can literally change your movie after you've already shot it because it's similar, the fact that you can, like, completely alter your ending says a lot about the structural integrity of what's coming up before it, that it's so disposable that you can just go, that thing's not going to happen, we're going to do it this way instead.
I mean, the embargo's down. We could watch our review. Eric has seen it too.
I like the movie a lot more than Dan. But.
Yeah, that's. You're right.
I'm saying that with, like, I haven't seen it, and I don't know if I'm even going to see it in theaters. I like that, and I love Sophie Turner. I like this cast of X-Men, and I don't even care. And it makes me sad that I don't care. Like, If you told me in the mid '90s that there would be a Dark Phoenix movie in theaters and everyone that I would want to see would be in it, like, I can't believe that I don't care about it.
Yeah.
So what do you think that this, none of us have really seen the movie, so we can't talk too much about it.
Well,
but
the bookends have.
Yeah.
But we're not going to talk about it. Spoiler.
But we want to talk about, I want to get into the kind of the legacy of these X-Men movies. So whether or not this is a great place for them to have ended with these, looking back on the legacy of this franchise, what do you feel about it? Because I remember, I don't know, I feel like now we go back and you get a lot of the, kind of, these movies were never good and they were never great. And it's like, no, we all really liked X2, right?
Yeah. X2 is one of the better comic book movies, I think.
Ever.
I think
that.
I think the problem with this overall, and this kind of jumps to a later point, but I think that what happened with X-Men is that it is a franchise from a previous era of comic book movies.
Yes.
It's from that late 90s, early 2000s era where we first saw like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and we were like seeing the gap in between the Joel Schumacher Batman and then the rise of the why I'm blanking on his name, the Dark Knight and the Batman Begins, the Nolan Batman movie. Sorry. And I think that like what happened is all these other franchises, Spider-Man, Batman, they were all rebooted. And X-Men, instead of doing like a full reboot, did a soft reboot. So, but the problem is, we mentioned the timeline confusion and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's almost like Highlander, where they didn't originally intend it to be a franchise when they first made it, and then they tried to like Frankenstein it into a franchise afterwards. So you have all these like random pieces and parts that don't necessarily come together in any sort of continuity. And I think that's what's happening with X-Men, is like each movie almost resets some of the continuity of the previous one, and it's like, and then just makes the mess bigger and bigger and harder to follow.
It's funny because in that way, it is the most true to comic book movies that there
true.
is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a bunch of pieces
The
that
other
are
thing
thrown
that's
together.
super true to comic books, and I always talk about this, is the jumping ahead a decade and they're barely aging and they've lived through all these world events. I'm like, that is as literal as Marvel Comics history as you'll ever get. The fact that they lived through Vietnam and the Reagan era, and it's just kind of talked about in a little bit, It's like,
I will say
that's
that
Marvel.
I think that for the legacy of this, I think one thing that it did do that, like, I think Marvel was able to build off of for their cinematic universe, it's the first, I think, comic book movie that we got where we actually got a sense of what the whole world was like. Like, it wasn't just like this one hero in this one city doing this thing. It was like with X-Men, because of the built-in nature of how mutants work, it's like we have this entire world full of people with powers, and everybody has an effect. Everybody in this world has an opinion on mutants. Everybody knows what mutants are. Everyone. So that's a thing that I think that a lot of movies besides X-Men didn't have going for it, and gave building blocks for future franchises and shared universe stories and stuff.
I have like tremendous affection for this series. Honestly, it's like there's some terrible movies in that series, but I also think that the highs are really high. And I just rewatched the 6 X-Men movies last weekend, and I still really stand by the first 2. And First Class and Days of Future Past. I think they're all great. And that first one especially, I mean, you got to think about the timing. It was 2000, so we were coming out of Batman and Robin, Steel. Like, these were comic book movies at the time. And that movie, opening with Auschwitz, opening with, like, not only are we in the real world, we're in the real world. Like, and just the entire fact that the gravity to that movie, and the fact that the characters, like, we take these characters seriously. We take their plight seriously. I think is the legacy of this series, and that's the thing I hope is not overlooked when people look back on like comic book movies. Like, and then there was X-Men. I was like, no, because even I love Raimi's movies too. Well, the first 2, but even those were a little more like heightened. He was operating at a little more like quote unquote comic booky than X-Men, which was just like, no, we are like, we're taking this very serious. So I think that was the best thing about the series, and the thing that really would have a lot of ramifications going forward. It's just like, no, we're going to take this. It's not Gotham or a city that seems like out of time or not of our world exactly. It's like, no, this is happening.
Yeah, the series is so weird because with it's so many just weird stuff happened to like the series everything around X-Men 3 and why Brett Ratner came into that movie and why James Marsden left and Bryan Singer going to make Superman Returns. And
I had to correct people on Twitter when I said Matthew Vaughn cast Kelsey Grammer. You were like, no, Matthew Vaughn didn't quit this movie. He quit Days of Future Past. I'm like, no, he quit both. It's like,
X-Men, like Wolverine, and the whole movie leaking on the internet.
That was how I saw
not
it.
being made, and then like being like brought in by Fox, but even just the idea that like the best and the worst movies of this franchise were made by the same people.
Yeah.
Bryan Singer and Simon Kinberg made the best and the worst movies
They made
were
Days of Future
involved
Past and
in the best.
Apocalypse
Yes.
back to back. That's what's crazy about it.
Hugh Jackman starred in the best Wolverine movie you could possibly imagine and the worst
Right.
Wolverine movie you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds was the best Deadpool you could possibly imagine and the worst Deadpool you could
And they all
possibly
also, except for Ryan Reynolds, they all also made like one very mediocre down the middle
Yeah.
one too.
Yeah.
Like the first X-Men, the middle Wolverine movie, and like it's just like
It is so weird, and it's like every single movie seemed to stumble and bumble its way into theaters.
Yeah.
And the ones you thought were horrible were great, and the ones you thought were going to be great were trash. And it's just, it is the weirdest, most like, it's not one of those things where it's like you had one creative team that made like the strong early movies, and then there's diminishing returns as these kind of journeymen took over the sequels. Like, no, this was a pretty consistent creative team throughout that somehow delivered the most wildly variant results of any franchise, at least superhero franchise, in history.
Yeah.
But that first X-Men movie, I will agree, that's the one where, I mean, Blade was like important in the sense that
absolutely.
like it was successful on its own terms, but X-Men I think was important in a different way in the sense of like Blade was never like the character that was on a T-shirt.
It just
or
wasn't thought of as a comic book movie.
Blade kind of was its own thing, whereas X-Men was adapting a thing. Like not most fans, even comic book fans, weren't like giant Blade fans, right? Like X-Men was just coming off of one of the most popular cartoon adaptations of all time. Like Batman was different because Batman came after the Batman movies, but X-Men, like that was the first for a lot of people. That was the introduction to the X-Men. Was that cartoon?
The cartoon, and then
for
a movie after seeing so many like the Captain America movie was awful, and the Fantastic Four movie was this weird thing that you saw just picture stills in Wizard magazine from that never came out, and for X-Men to come out and to be like to walk out and be like that was Wolverine. They just made Wolverine. Like, I saw Wolverine on the. I saw Professor
I remember
X.
crowding around a monitor at my high school's like AV club room to watch the trailer for X-Men. We were like that excited. Like there's a trailer for the live action X-Men movie. And, like, that was the most amazing thing in the world.
That is the most on-brand thing you have ever
of course it is.
And they didn't get everything right, but they did enough things really well. And X-Men 2 really just, I think, took everything from the first movie and built on it so well that it helped lay the foundation with Spider-Man of what we have. The fact that you can make something that's you don't have to apologize for.
Right.
That can be good and that people will really go out and see.
Yeah, and especially, we talk about all of the movies and these moments. There's that fantastic moment in X2 where we finally get to see the Wolverine Berserker Barrage, and he starts going off
break-in part,
bloodlessly, but that's cool. That's fine. That fridge got the worst of it, I guess.
Do what you can do.
That's my one thing that I'll say to the mess that was Apocalypse, the Wolverine scene when they go to Alkali Lake and they like set him free and he just rampages through that facility. I was like, finally they got just a really good brutal Wolverine sequence in one of these movies. Like it's bloody, it's brutal, it's bad, it's great. Yeah, that
was really good. Are there any other great moments that you remember or performances that you really loved?
Rewatching them, I really was like, oh man, I forgot how great McKellen and Stewart in that first movie are off each other right from the beginning, right from the "we are the future, Charles, not them." It was like I was like, damn, this is awesome. Like and again, I had the same like I'm watching Magneto and Professor X, and they're having their philosophical discussions. Like it's just like,
and then we'll have 9 more movies of those philosophical discussions and never get resolved
every time.
And it is true that you see like because they're obviously two great actors, but it's like there's a difference so much between that first movie and like their performances in the third movie, right? They're like they're still good actors, they're still going to do a good job, but it's like that first movie, like they're in it, like they're delivering here.
Ooh, that de-aging in the third movie.
Oh yeah.
We weren't quite there yet.
We weren't there.
We're still not quite. No, we're almost there.
Sometimes we're there.
Sometimes we're there. Sometimes we're not there.
We got there with Samuel L. Jackson and Captain Marvel. And that's the only one we've managed to just nail.
For the reason that Michael Douglas has been my favorite. Michael Douglas, for whatever reason, I thought they de-aged him the best.
Last Stand walked so that Ant-Man could run.
That's true. Well, I openly complimented Ant-Man, and I think it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. I was like, the de-aging they did on Lawrence Fishburne was amazing, and they're like, that wasn't.
That's just his.
That was just his son. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, it looked great.
They cloned Lawrence Fishburne decades ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, God, and this is going way back, but it's like when I found out that Linda Hamilton had a twin, and that's how they did the double in Terminator
yeah.
2. I was like, oh, so it wasn't just like at the time the best person looking at another themselves. It was just like she has a twin. Bring her to set.
I will say I do love the moment in X2 when Nightcrawler is talking to Mystique and he's asking her about her powers, and he's like, "Why, if you can look like them, like why wouldn't you just choose to do it all the time?" And she has that, like, because we shouldn't have to. And like, as someone who like can't hide herself and like what she looks like to the world, like I love, it's like I don't have the ability to like blend in, and I also don't think I should have to do it to be accepted and be treated like equally. So like that's like that really resonated with me. And then I feel like with the prequel trilogy saga, whatever I'm calling it now, like the Mystique storyline through that like really resonated with me a lot. So I don't think it's Jennifer Lawrence's best performances. I think she's done definitely way better acting work in other films. I think this is her like, I'm making this money so I can do other movies. But I think that storyline mattered to me, even when the movies aren't that great.
Yeah, I think Rebecca Romijn's Mystique, I think, gets mainly because particularly the third movie just literally just discarded her.
100%.
Yeah.
But she was like a breakout in the first one.
Yeah, she was great.
And I loved her take on Mystique, which is just like, I'm not afraid of my power. I'm going to use my power to exploit you because you've exploited me my entire life.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I feel like the first two X-Men, Jennifer Lawrence X-Men movies really served that, but then I felt like 3 and 4, largely because it was fairly obvious that Jennifer Lawrence was like, I'm not putting that blue makeup on anymore.
Yeah, you're not getting me that chance.
Discarded that part of her because then she was always looked like Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
And I just felt like that was the real life, much like every other X-Men movie, that was real life intruding on the movie in a way that hurt the finished product.
Well, I was just thinking about, because you mentioned the World War II, the Holocaust aspects of it. It's going to be strange if they try to reboot X-Men now, and like, because we're a lot further away from the Holocaust historically than we were when they made the first one.
Right.
Like, how long can we still continue to have it be, unless they're also like set in the past the way this one was? Like, how do you make sequels now that are set with the Holocaust as a backdrop for history?
That Magneto backstory, that's all you needed for his motivation was that thing of just the number on his arm, just saying like, I've been cataloged once, and I'm not gonna. And that how do you substitute that if you're trying to update? I don't know how you do that.
Another standout scene, by the way, being that amazing scene in the bar in Argentina in First Class, where he can, the pig farmer and was it Taylor scene, when he confronts those two Nazis and and it's like a great scene for Fassbender. It's a great scene for his powers when he makes the knife fly into the bartender and back into his hand and stabs the guy's hand. And by the way, super underrated is Henry Jackman, not Hugh Jackman. Henry Jackman's Magneto theme from First Class, which I hum all the time. That's like another standout scene. And I do wonder if they'll try to do, Tony Stark had the problem of like, you can't have his origin be in Vietnam anymore, so then it just gets moved to another.
Yeah, same thing with Punisher. Like,
but it's very hard. Like World War II is
the Holocaust is very
so
different
specific,
than a different war.
right?
Yeah.
Even the comic books is funny because we get into the whole like insanity of the comic books sometimes, and people are like, in the comic books, he's still a Holocaust survivor, and people forget that it's like there was a storyline where he was aged to a baby, and then they aged him back to an adult, and they said now he's not as old as he was.
Yeah, that's how they had to get. It's almost like you wonder if they have to do one of those Captain America. I've been trapped in the ice, and that's how I come out, and I'm not,
my mastery of the Earth's magnetic fields has allowed me to slow my.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yeah.
I went through a portal.
I do love those comic book portals. So another thing I think we talk about hindsight now with the way that the MCU is. Do we think that maybe that might be why people are casting more of a critical eye towards, especially the earlier ones, and the way that we sort of see them?
Yeah, I think that's where I do think people are kind of unfair on them a little bit. Is that, of course, like you made the walk so we can ran joke, but it's like it is true for the
100%.
MCU. It's like, yes, the MCU is like taking all these things that they learning lessons both positive and negative and doing it in such a great way and doing this huge shared universe. And I love the MCU, but something I think people were overly harsh on X-Men, even just for the fact that it's like it can't have other Marvel characters in it, or it can't do this. And yes, their continuity is all screwed up. It never got me as mad as it got some people, but I did think it got people really, pointed. And I really think back, even on this past decade, you think about the X movies came out after the 1-2 terrible punch of Last Stand and Origins. But this decade was First Class, Days of Future Past, the Wolverine, the 2 Deadpool movies, Logan. Only Apocalypse was considered like a huge stinker amongst those. The rest were considered good, if not great. Logan, I think, is still the only superhero Marvel or DC movie to have a screenplay nomination at the Oscars. So it's like, this is a pretty damn good run, but I think it was almost like, I don't know, people were laser focused. Like, that's why I think Apocalypse, it's a terrible movie, don't get me wrong, but it almost was, it got too much burden of like, see, they're all bad, because it's like, people were like, it's not the MCU, and it's not. But I do think people are overly harsh on it sometimes for some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's what I said earlier about how people now, like, they took a movie franchise that wasn't built to be this long shared universe storyline, and they made it into one, whereas MCU had the advantage of coming after those original movies and that original run of comic movies,
Right.
and they like patiently played out their franchise. Like they released Iron Man in 2009, right? And it was 2008, and it wasn't until 2012 when the Avengers came out. So we had all those years of movies. We had 2 Iron Man movies, we had a Thor movie, we had Captain America, we had the Hulk movie, all that coming out before we got to the Avengers. Whereas X-Men doesn't really have the ability to do that because you start with a team. So you don't really
the
have,
family is the point.
Yeah,
The point is that they are family and that they're this group that are sticking together.
And I think I liked the first X-Men movie. And
Yeah,
I
no,
know
I
a lot
liked it
of
a
people. It's kind of regarded by a lot of people now. It's like, but the other part of that, you have to look at it in context, particularly with the first X-Men movie, is like, now, yes, now we live in a world where a studio is fine with spending whatever it takes to put every superhero you've ever seen in one big battle scene together against the biggest alien army on the face of the planet. But like,
it took them a decade to get there.
Yeah, it took them. It took Marvel a decade to get where they went to with Endgame, and it took movies 8 years to get to where Iron Man was. The idea that, like, when Fox was making the first X-Men movie back in 1999, that they would give them enough budget to have a team of 15 X-Men with this, like, yes, the first X-Men movie is small.
Yeah.
There are 5 X-Men. Their costumes are all, basic leather design. The finale is largely in front of a blue screen Statue of Liberty crown and inside a small torch room.
But it makes sense in the context of that movie because it's not supposed to be that mutants are just up fighting battles all the time. Like, it's supposed to be that people hate mutants, and this is the one group that's like, no, we're going to be better than this. We're going to be defending people. And like, they've been operating in secret,
Yeah. I just think that movie's criticized for looking cheap.
Yeah.
Or looking small or dated, and it's like, well, yes, but they did not have. We live in a world now for over a decade now where just about every comic book movie has been given an unlimited budget to do whatever they
And
want.
people forget too that like Marvel wasn't Disney until after the Avengers movie. Like, they up to the Avengers, it was Marvel as an independent studio making. They raised a bunch of money and they made a huge gamble with the Avengers. And people thought it was going to fail. People thought Avengers was going to be a huge flop and like a big risk, and it ended up being great. Same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, they took a thing outside of their realm, and people like, this might not be very good. Like. So, like, it's weird to go mad at X-Men who, like, did it with nothing before it. Like, it's easy to look back on it now and go, yeah, it was great, because everyone... But it was a tough thing to do back then.
Because I think the first movie, if I recall, they moved up the release date. It's supposed to be Christmas 2000. They moved it up to summer and cut the budget. So it was like they were giving them a bad hand, right? And that's the thing about X-Men is like, and that's where, again, going back to its influence, it's like, but it delivered on the characters so well. Again, the costumes were wrong. The budget was relatively low for a movie that we think of on that scale, but it's like, wow, they really got a lot. I mean, not every character was done right. Like, Storm was not done justice, but it's like...
Yeah, and they wound up changing Rogue, and that made a lot of people really cranky.
Like a Wolverine, Professor X, Magneto in that movie, like a lot of like the linchpins of X-Men. And
like Toad. Thank God we got Toad in there.
That's right. It's Darth Maul.
Yeah, Jean was fantastic in those. I thought that she was really well done.
And I actually think Cyclops in the first X-Men movie is really good.
He was Cyclops.
He was Cyclops. He had a smug attitude. They had good face. I thought, like, he's a supporting character, but I really like where they're going with this. It's just then they never serviced
went anywhere.
Because the actor left this franchise.
And a franchise that was beset by calamitous bad luck. I think the one stroke of fortune that worked in their favor, and it was a huge one, was Hugh Jackman.
Who was the second cast choice.
Dougray Scott got held up on Mission Impossible 2. And they were like, we got to get another Wolverine, and it turned out that they got like
Hugh Jackman.
the best possible, the guy that would carry their franchise for 20 years.
Who knows? You need a song and dance man if you want to.
The boy from Oz. There he is.
Who knew? Yeah, I mean, the idea of, and again, what would a studio do that now? a character like Wolverine, and you cast a little not like a cult actor, not like if you cast like Carl Urban as Wolverine
Right.
5 years ago,
Yeah.
like to cast
be
someone
down for
who
that.
literally
No one's seen, and
no one
No.
has heard of.
Yeah.
Like not even like maybe I don't even know what he had done in like movie wise. Like,
I
think
assume he was
Australian-
on
He was, like-
Neighbors because every Australian
Everyone's on
actor was on
Neighbours,
Neighbors.
yeah, but the idea of casting someone as Wolverine, who is literally not like James Marsden and Famke Johnson, who have done like roles in movies that you might have seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally nobody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what a studio today cast a role that big with like a literal like complete unknown who actually turned out, shocker, that sometimes when you cast the exact right person for the role,
Yeah,
no
they
matter
were
how big of a
big.
star they are, then they can make themselves a star and make that character a breakout character.
Yeah. Yep.
It's pretty crazy.
That is pretty great. So Simon Kinberg recently said there will still be reshoots and additional filming for the New Mutants this year, which has been delayed again until April 2020. It was originally scheduled for March of last year. Why are we doing this? Do you think it's worth doing this at this point?
The fact that
know.
they're average, the marketing for Dark Phoenix is this is the end of the X-Men universe, and they're like, it's
Asterisk.
like yeah, it's like, that tells you how little they care about that movie at this point, which is a bummer because I like Maisie Williams and I wanted it to be like this great thing, but I don't think it's
I
gonna
guess
work.
I'll play devil's advocate and say maybe it is. I mean, it depends on like we don't know the shape of this movie. Like if this movie truly is like 90% there, and if they do some reshoots, they can fix it. I say why not? Because again, I'm not so hung up as I think some people are on like. But it's not connected to anything, so what does it matter? There'll never be a sequel. I'm like, if it's a cool movie, it's a cool movie.
Yeah,
I don't mind that.
I'm fine with
Yeah.
I
that.
don't mind that at all. In fact, I've always been a huge advocate for, I like when, since superhero went from being, like we can only do superhero movies now, but everyone knows how they work and you can play with the tropes. I enjoy when you're able to do a heist movie with Ant-Man or anything. I was looking forward to doing a horror movie starring some mutant kids.
Yeah.
That sounded really good.
And I'm curious to know what the budgetarily, like
Sure.
what does this involve? Because I'm still interested in the take, but the question is like, what are they pumping into it? Because I would hate for them to do it, but then it comes out and it was so ruinously expensive that
Right.
it almost, unless it's a miraculous breakout,
Yeah.
it couldn't succeed well enough for it to be. And then that's
Yeah.
really unfair to everyone involved because by not really knowing what you're doing, you've now saddled it with too much baggage to succeed, and that also seems unfair. But I'm still curious. But
That's kind of what happened to
it's-
Solo because they fired
Yeah.
the directors and had to like reshoot and like redo things. Like that made that movie almost impossible to succeed.
right,
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
it have been better?
It went from like the
almost,
lowest
for
budget
them?
Star Wars movie to the highest budget Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Right, and seeing what Lord Miller did with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse,
Yeah.
and nobody knows what was coming in.
Yeah.
But I think that's always my question in my mind is seeing how not successful that movie was, largely because it cost $250 million to make when you reshot all of it. If they had just kept what they had,
Right.
Yeah.
would the movie A have done better, or B, even if it hadn't done better as far as raw numbers, it would have been more successful
Yeah.
because you would have lopped $100 million or $75 million off the budget by not reshooting the whole thing.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. I think that also, like, if you look, speaking about Danielle's point about the horror movie aspect of New Mutants, I think you can do that movie really well with a low budget. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the fact that Legion is able to do what they're able to do with a TV budget, and like they've done some very horror movie level episodes of just that show. I feel like if they could just even give them that much of a budget and have a solid script, you could make a great movie that would not cost you that much to make and would make a lot of money.
That's my, If reshooting it takes the budget from $30 million to $40 million, then I think it might definitely be worth it.
Right.
But if reshooting it takes the budget from $100 million to, or even from like $50 million to $100 million,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then
I
you're
think you
not-
have to be like, is this worth it, or should we just
Release has
Yeah,
release
release
what
what we
we've
have,
got?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll see about how that is going to shake out. I'm still excited to see the movie if it ever comes out. Who knows if it will. But that is the end of this first segment. We've got some more stuff to talk about later. But As per usual, this is Fandom Entertainment. This is SJU. The channel you are watching is Fandom Entertainment. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell so that you can get notifications. There it is. Thank you, Ryan. So you can get notifications every time we put up a new video. We've got some great stuff on the website on fandom.com. We have a piece called Dark Phoenix is the X-Men universe's answer to real-life chaos. Check that out. And we have 7 ways Marvel Studios can reboot the X-Men. The links are in the description down below. Check those out. Speaking of TV shows and what they can do with the budget or not, I'm just going to read this the way that Ryan put it.
It's good.
This is good.
Goodbye you to Swamp Thing. Canceled after one episode via THR. So DC Universe has canceled Swamp Thing. Only one of its 10 episodes has aired. They've already cut down the first season. It was going to have 13, and then it was then cut to 10, and then production was halted. So the series is going to go, but this is it. It's all done. Is anyone super surprised about this? Has anyone gotten a chance to check this out yet?
I don't have DC Universe.
Yeah.
So
I haven't checked it out. But I've heard nothing but good things. I heard like very positive reactions, especially to that pilot. You know,
I
people were
really
like,
liked it.
Yeah,
I really liked it, and I thought that it was very, very well done. And I'm not going to spoil it. Just go, if you have it, go watch it.
I still will check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's a bummer. I mean, it is surprising just as far as like. First of all, I just think of the James Wan of it all because he's an EP on this, and he just made them like $1 billion with another DC character, and he makes Warner Brothers millions of dollars with the Conjuring franchise.
Right.
So that was just interesting to me that it's just like it's done. Like, and it just certainly it seems like they can't have made this. We don't know what the numbers are like on DC Universe. None of these streaming services we know, but this one especially, we know that it's pretty small in general. So I don't see how Swamp Thing after one episode they can be like, that's it, not getting Titans numbers after one episode. So it's a little interesting that it happens so quickly.
It could be if they don't see like a huge boost in subscribers coming in because the show is coming on. That might be the thing. Like well, we already have these viewers, so we don't. This isn't bringing us anybody new. So it's costing us.
Well, and then some sources are saying that it is creative differences, and that's why it's no longer going to go. And then there was someone mentioned, but then unmentioned, and then re-mentioned. It may have been an issue with the budget, with some tax break stuff, but no one really knows how much that is.
It was circulating this morning, and I even sent the thread to Eric and Ryan to prep the show. It was like somebody's like, they were promised $40 million in tax breaks, but they only got $15 million, so they cut it entirely because of budgetary reasons. Like that's how the thread was presented,
Yes.
and then. As people were like, I read the stories and I don't think that is like, well, don't take my, I mean, you do the investigation and don't take my word for it. It's like, well, you kind of presented the information as if
And
this
it's
was the
literally
story.
like everyone's saying it's creative differences, but I got the scoop.
But it's actually about accounting. But then when people are like, I'm not so sure, he's like, well, I didn't say this. Do your own investigation. But from what I read in my investigation, it was, it looked like, I mean, the stories that this person on Twitter linked said that contradicted what they said, which was that it said that Swamp Thing had requested $16 million worth of tax breaks from North Carolina. They ended up getting $13 million worth of tax breaks. But then North Carolina also had an issue where it seemed kind of unrelated, though, where they almost excised film breaks altogether from their budget, but ended up they didn't do that. But yeah, the thing this morning has been like, well, it's all based on tax cut reasons. Like, we read the articles that we could read, and it doesn't... It does not sound like it's that much of an open and shut case. Half their budget got cut. We have not found that information.
Yeah, it sounds like it's one of those ones where it's just a lot of things that are happening all at once.
A lot of factors. When they first halted production, for what it's worth, again, things change and also people hide the truth. But when they first cut production, they said it was not creative based, right? Which then lends credence to the fact that it might be financially based. But it's probably some weird mixture, because I feel like if they 100% felt like, no, this show is stellar, there is a future in this show, then they could figure it out. Right?
That's what I was thinking.
They could figure out a second season that's 6 episodes or something. It's like there's other ways around that, so it feels like they had to ultimately have felt like not that much enough confidence if they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna let it go.
Well, I just wonder too, I mean, the one thing that doesn't seem to be in doubt, and that was in those stories, is that the budget for the first season was $85 million, which
is
a lot.
So much money for any TV show,
Yeah.
but especially a TV show on a streaming service that's already,
Brand new.
Warner doesn't release the numbers, but like nobody knows how DC Universe is doing.
Right.
They're already questioning like, what is going to happen to this streaming service once Warner launches their own streaming service, plus
Yeah.
like $85 million for one season of 10 episodes
Yeah.
to 13 episodes of TV. Like,
Yeah.
that is a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, the
and
early
I think-
Game of
and it
Thrones
looks good.
seasons. I think early Game of Thrones seasons were like $100 million for 10 episodes. So that's not. That's pretty close. You know,
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I think that we're at a point too where people are starting to get fatigued by the amount of streaming services there are, because
Oh,
it's starting
boy.
to feel like a
Yeah.
backdoor right back into having a cable package where you have to like the whole point of being online and streaming was to not be paying hundreds of dollars a month for entertainment, and now you're doing it again. So it's like it's just hard to pick a new like I as a big Star Trek Discovery fan, I have a hard time getting anybody to watch it because they're all like, I don't want to pay for
Right.
CBS, and then
Same
like
here.
yeah.
I
The Twilight
yeah.
Zone didn't seem to do much to move the needle
No.
once it came out, because I was very anxious to, and I have CBS All Access, and I was anxious to watch the Twilight Zone, and then it came out, and the word that I heard was like,
Yeah,
Rush.
I watched the first one, and that's all I've watched so far, and I was excited about it.
I was
Yeah.
really excited about it. So, what do we think this has to say about DC? You know, this is a new streaming service. They're all new. They're all just coming
Yeah.
out. So, do we think that this bodes well, or do you think it's just too early to say? Does it attest to maybe everyone needs some more time to figure this thing out since it's so new? Or
I think it's what Dan alluded to, and we've talked. I know we've talked about it previously, but it's just like, as a corporation, they can't. You know, as you were talking about, we all can't do all these streaming services. And Time Warner, or whatever they're called now with AT&T,
Warner Media.
Warner Media, they can't sustain having 3 streaming services because HBO Now is also them, and it just feels like DC Universe is not going to be a long-term thing. That doesn't mean they're going to cancel all the programming. If Doom Patrol or Titans is seen as viable, they could move over to this new Warner Media streaming service, but they have to be forward-thinking at this point and thinking we can't. Or less is more right now, because I think they're all going to eventually funnel into
Do you
this one.
think that they move? Do you think it's potentially that they can move the programming to Warner Media, and then DC Universe just becomes sort of like, what is it, Marvel Unlimited?
I think
where
so.
it is a resource for, they could, I mean, they'd have to probably drop the price maybe.
Yeah.
But it just becomes a resource for back issues of comic books.
That's
and-
great. Give me that.
Yeah,
new
'cause
comics
that's
and
the
stuff
other
like
big
that.
thing
old
they
movie,
have.
like the back catalog of the films that you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
find as easily.
Well, I think that they'll all want the films on Warner Media, right? Because that will be the thing. Is
that's
like,
true.
Yeah.
It'll be like Disney Plus for its entire library is.
But I do think the comics, you know, that's the other, like, that's the cool thing about DC Universe is it's like it's original content and nostalgia content and comic books.
Yeah.
They have to do something with that. But I think, I think I even said on a previous episode, it's like if they could do something even where it's like that is cheaper, but also they bundle that, right? Like get Warner Media streaming service and DC Universe,
Yeah.
and it's all put together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just need them to save my Doom Patrol. I need Danny the Street in my life. He cannot go away. All right, so again, story number 3 via Joe, who was on vacation.
From the Himalayas. Wherever he is.
It's Pet.
Climbing Everest.
He's got a huge line.
He's
in
in that photo.
Yeah.
Guy with the hat. That's Joe.
So Secret Life of Pets 2 is also coming out this weekend, as Dan
Finally.
said. You know, we've been waiting.
I would not put out, this is just a marketing note, I would not put out my funny kids movie with the marketing message, don't laugh. That's just me,
Yeah.
though. I
Although
get it.
again, didn't the first movie make like $1 billion?
The first movie was obscenely successful.
Can I say like this whole marketing strategy of this movie, where they just show like these like little like shorts during as a trailer, is the weirdest. Like I mean, like
I didn't like
guess
those,
as a kid,
yeah.
but I also know it's not for me.
Right,
I know
right,
it's
right.
for a kid to go. I want to watch the funny rabbit thing, but like some of them are like weird and esoteric, and like it's like there's like one that's like on a farm. Like what is happening in this trailer?
Did you have the thing happen where they would show like 2 or 3 back to back? Because I had that
Yes.
happen, and it was
Yeah.
really strange.
Yeah, like, it's like you see
it's
this
like
movie.
3 30-second trailers in a row for this movie. Would
In
play.
the theaters or on
In the
TV?
theaters.
Because they did that. Well, Warner did that. It was the weirdest thing. Before The Nun, Warner had that thing with Star is Born, where they played 3 30-second scenes.
Oh, weird.
That's weird.
They would just start, and then at the end it would just be like, A Star is Born.
This is a new weird thing, and I'm against it because Dark Phoenix did this too. If you went to IMAX, if you saw Endgame opening weekend in IMAX, you would see and now a special IMAX preview for Dark Phoenix, and they'd show that, and then it would end, and then the trailer for Dark Phoenix would show.
Yeah.
It was like guys.
Well, but the other thing is, this IMAX preview thing, like, I think it worked for Dark Knight Rises, where
Yeah.
you're just like, whoa, but like the one for Godzilla, King of the Monsters, like, it gave away the farm.
Yeah.
Like every big money moment in the whole movie was shown in that IMAX preview, and I, like when it was over, like halfway through, I was like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah, I've already seen it.
I don't
Yeah.
want to see this.
It's like, you know, and I do. We've talked about this before. I really like the Hobbs and Shaw trailer, but I know everything about Hobbs and Shaw now.
Yeah, we know the entirety of that movie.
We know all of it.
The second trailer, it looks like a totally different movie too. So I'm like, now I've seen all these scenes. Now I've seen all these scenes. Like it's weird.
But I get my Roman Reigns. Ooh ah. So back to Secret Life of Pets.
Yeah, sorry.
Because we have to, because I have to make Joe on vacation happy. Y'all, do you have a favorite movie pet?
This is a tough question.
I know, right?
Like,
I think Stitch counts as like a pet. He's like cute. He rides a surfboard. He's probably my favorite movie pet. I was obsessed with Garfield when I was a kid. Obsessed with Garfield. I think everyone was back then. But
I was until he betrayed me.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
Oh, no.
Garfield
steal your
Halloween
lasagna?
special.
Oh my God.
Yeah, terrifying.
Betrayed my love of Garfield and traumatized me for life. If you've not seen the Garfield Halloween
ghosts are
special,
terrifying.
it's terrifying.
It is dark.
And it like it's like the thing that you thought made you safest in the world just turned on you out of nowhere.
I am going to bring it to the office because I think I still have somewhere. This book I had as when I was a little kid and I loved Garfield. There was a book called The 9 Lives Garfield.
I had that.
And it was do you remember that like horror story with the old woman? And there's like, and it's drawn like super creepy.
Yeah, but
Like,
nothing ruined your childhood more than that weird Peanuts thing where Snoopy got like dreamt that he was a sled dog in Alaska and he like drowns in like a lake of ice at some point. Like
I
it was
remember this.
horrifying. It's like an hour of Snoopy being like whipped by a sled driver and like it's like a Call of the Wild kind of like thing where like he goes like feral and like wakes up and like he's like back with Charlie Brown again. I'm like, this is the most like Snoopy has like some dark demons that we gotta work out.
As a Snoopy fan, as I've said on the show before, I'm glad I've never seen it.
Yeah, don't look
it was
that up.
horrifying.
Yeah.
So would you say that he is your favorite pet?
Snoopy?
Yeah.
Snoopy is a good dog.
It was a good boy.
Snoopy is such a good dog.
Would you
Yeah.
consider Snoopy to be a pet, or is Snoopy more of a friend?
I think
Charlie Brown
is
thinks
Snoopy's pet.
Snoopy is Charlie Brown thinks Snoopy is his pet, but Snoopy is no man's pet. Snoopy takes
World
advantage
War
of the
One ace. You know, first of all.
he takes advantage of the creature comforts of being a pet. He has a house, but he also is entirely independent.
Would you say he has a secret life as a pet?
Yes, he has a secret there you go. Yes.
Theaters everywhere.
He's the original Secret Life of Pets.
He is the original Secret Life of Pets.
I can't think of any. I guess the cricket from WALL-E. That's all I got. Like the little cricket that keeps WALL-E company when he's sad and by himself on Earth. Everyone needs a friend.
So I'm a big horror movie guy, and so everything I thought of as horror movies. First of all, last night I went to see the Crow at a screening, and I was like, oh, I forgot the Crow. Hey, Eric Draven has a cat, Gabriel. But so then I thought of Jonesy from Alien.
Oh, Jonesy. Okay, I changed my answer. Jonesy or Goose.
And then I thought
Just
of
give me a cat somewhere.
Nanook from The Lost Boys, who's a very good dog who can sense vampires and will leap at them for you.
That's a good dog.
So Nanook and I think those are my big. And then if I wanted to get really dark, I'd say Church from Pet Cemetery, but not post Resurrection.
I'm staying with Jonesy.
Jonesy's good.
Jonesy's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jonesy's
the
a
alien
good-
is scared of Jonesy because it knows Jonesy's what to fear.
It knows what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the-
Ghost is-
is
Oh,
a
yeah,
good
yeah.
one. Ghost is, I think, perhaps the only character in Game of Thrones that came out of the last season completely unscathed. As a matter of fact, Ghost came out better.
He's a little scathed, but yeah.
Well, yeah, physically, but I just mean like in the eyes of the fans. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
the only if you were looking at like the Q rating, maybe the only character whose Q rating went up was Ghost.
Oh, I think Sansa, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I think my real answer for the pet. Oh, you didn't say yours yet.
No. Oh, for my favorite. No,
Yeah.
those are the ones that I
Oh, you
had.
did say Stitch. I think the next question is the one that answers mine about pets because I think my favorite movie about a pet is Homeward Bound. Like I think that those good boys and girls get home and it's like you as a kid like that was what you wanted to believe was like my pets love me so much they cross the country for me and that's so I think that's what Sadie, Chance, and Shadow is that what's the cat's name? Sadie?
Sassy.
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 Yes.
My favorite movie about a pet is I'm totally cheating because is it a pet? But I think the movie is actually asking that question as well, which is Babe. Because I love Babe, and I love Babe Pig in the City. I think they're both great. They're wonderful movies. And yes, when the movie begins, I guess maybe Farmer Hoggett would not consider Babe a pet, but certainly by the end, that's a bond that cannot be broken. So.
Lady and the Tramp is a great movie, despite a very blatant anti-cat agenda.
Yeah.
Which, as the adopted father now of two cats,
Yes.
I'm much more
And
sensitive
racist
to.
too, like anti-cat and like super racist depiction of cats.
That is also not a great legacy for that. That's like the one I hate when there's like a movie that I love and there's like one thing that I'm like, shit. cat.
Yeah.
And that's
So
that's
really-
what.
and I had
is
Siamese
later in
cats as a kid, so that was the weirdest thing for me. I was like, I don't like any of what's happening in this movie.
It's so bad.
But the spaghetti scene is so cute.
It is
the
so
trailer.
cute.
It's cute, and just the idea of like they brought out the best in each other.
It was very strange being a child of Jewish descent who very much liked American Tail, but also had to reckon with the fact that like the cats were supposed to be like Cossacks and like the weird anti-Semitism. Like it was the weirdest representation of like, oh, this pet that I love is also apparently supposed to kill me.
There are no cats in America.
There are no cats in America. I think my
Set your mind at
favorite,
ease.
my favorite pet movie. I'm stretching it. Is Best in Show.
Oh yeah,
great
okay.
one.
Yeah,
Oh,
take it back.
no,
I
it's
changed
great.
my answer.
Yeah.
You don't know my dog. You definitely don't know my dog.
That might be the most realistic look at pet owners
Yeah.
in movie
Yeah.
history, and every spectrum from
So good.
from the wonderful pet owner that Harlan Pepper is. Like
Yeah.
he's like the best dog owner.
Yeah.
Like he brings the dog to the show, but he doesn't put pressure on. Like
Yeah.
he's just like, it'd be great if the dog won, but really I just love my dog. To like the
Yeah.
high strung Parker
Parker
Posey.
Posey,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh god, it's so funny.
Yeah. So.
Is Best in Show the one where they met at Starbucks, but a different Starbucks? Is it?
Yeah, there's a Starbucks across the street.
Yeah.
So good.
Which I'm from Seattle, and that is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's a thing everywhere, but there's a specific corner where there's Starbucks on
The
like.
first time
every-
I saw it was in Vancouver, and then saw it in Seattle. I was like, "Oh, Best in Show is real."
Yeah, no, it
There is
is.
not a line in that movie that is not just golden. Like every single line, it's a great take. It's a great line delivered. It's written. It's like improvised. It's just every single thing anyone says in that movie is hysterically
Yeah,
funny.
if you've never
It's
seen
crazy
Best in
good.
Show, it is by Christopher
good.
Guest. He is brilliant. Everyone he works with is brilliant. Go see that.
Waiting for Guffman.
Waiting for Guffman, all of those. Spinal Tap. So I think that wraps up our pets. Thank you, Joe, from vacation.
Joe, you're a good
Joe.
boy. You're a good boy, Joe.
Yeah, and I think you're next in line at Everest.
And also, our pitch for Perfect Pet Movie is the one that Joe has pitched for years, which is a Saving Private Ryan reboot with a dog instead of Saving Private Ryan.
And so Fan Friday is tomorrow. The new Fan Friday post will be up on the community post, according to Ryan in the script, like in 30 minutes. Once he eats lunch, he'll get that up.
Sustenance, that's important.
So get your questions in before tomorrow's show. And then later today, we have a movie fights. The Dan Gauntlet is beginning.
Oh boy.
You ready?
I'm ready. I think it's gonna be a good fight. The answers are good. The fights are good.
Yeah, so it's gonna be fact checker fights. So it is me versus Dan versus Lon. I think the questions are gonna be great. I'm just here to have a good time. Unlike
Me, you can say it.
Dan's not here to make friends.
I'm here to make
Who's out
friends,
for
Dan. I just want to hang out with my good friends Dan and Lon and talk about movies.
I must win at all costs.
So we will see you all back here at 4 Pacific Standard Time. We will see you tomorrow answering all of your questions. Have a good one. Bye.
Circles.
Circles.